Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leading Indicator, a show by Public.com focused on keeping you informed on financial news and top ideas. I'm your host, Anne Berry, and we're here with you today to discuss Tesla's future in AI and robotics. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more in-depth interviews that will keep your portfolio on track. Today, we are here with former Tesla insider Farzad Mesbahi. Farzad, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Public.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited. This all feels so professional and real, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Farzad, that's total inside baseball because, folks, I managed to completely mess up the opening lines in the first take of this, but that's what makes the world go round. Farzad, with your patience, let's just go through some of the numbers. I know you've got a math background, so let's drill into some of the Tesla math. Recently released its end-of-year production and delivery stats, with the EV giant delivering more than 1.8 million vehicles and producing more than 1.84 million in the year. So these are big numbers. On a growth basis, 38% delivery growth and production growth of 35% year over year. Now, Farzad, you were there for a long time at Tesla. We've just seen the company also begin deliveries for its Cybertruck model in December, hugely anticipated. Small quantities, but the point is it's launched, and new models are beginning to roll out. So tell us what you think about what's coming in terms of the next gen Tesla vehicles.
Yeah, for sure. The delivery and production number was definitely in line with where the company was guiding. If you look back to 2020, they set this sort of goal of 50% year over year growth for they said for the foreseeable future, and it seems like they've been ahead of schedule up to this point. I think moving forward, their growth is going to be heavily dependent on to keep that 50% growth rate going. It's going to be heavily dependent on the release of this next generation, sort of this compact car. People are still sort of trying to figure out exactly what it's going to look like. We have some sort of, some theories out there about what the car is going to be, but that's going to be the car that's going to take Tesla from, say, a 2 million per year, 3 million per year automaker to a 10 million per year automaker. So sort of this Toyota size, GM size type of vehicle maker. With the Cybertruck, I think what's exciting about that product launch is that it seems like it's going to be a vehicle that's going to have the same sort of impact that the Model S first had back in 2013 when it first launched. It sort of made people rethink what a vehicle can do, what an electric vehicle was. A lot of people, I think, thought that it was, electric vehicles was synonymous with golf cart. I get in there, I can go 30 miles an hour. It's going to, zip me around, but I shouldn't take it seriously. And the Model S was, I think, pretty instrumental in changing that mindset. And I think that's where the Cybertruck has an opportunity to do the same. It has a lot of new technology, like a 48-volt architecture, which enables what's called steer-by-wire, which is basically a way for the steering to work independent with the wheels, but it's very similar to how airplanes function today with their steering. It's a new technology, and what that allows the Cybertruck to have is to have handling that's very unique to that type of vehicle, a pickup truck. If you think pickup truck, you think lumbering, big, I got to turn the wheel 13 times to go left and right, where the Cybertruck is just, 180 degrees lock to lock. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And see how that develops. I think it's going to be a very successful vehicle. The initial reviews seem to be very positive. There's folks out there that are creating YouTube channels with their founder series, and they're going out there and trying these things out. But I think the future looks very bright, especially within the sort of landscape that we're in now as EV adoption continues to grow. BYD out of China in the fourth quarter actually sold more EVs than Tesla did globally in the quarter. And BYD will likely sell more than Tesla next year as well. But it's sort of, I think this shows that there is a market, there is a lot of demand for electric vehicles. And I think moving forward, it's going to be about affordability and having a product lineup that's truly differentiated from a gas car through better reliability, better performance, better safety, but most importantly, it needs to be cheaper. And that's where companies like Tesla are really heading towards.
Farzad, we're going to come back to China, and I love that you brought up BYD. So
Sure.
we're going to talk about the scale of that competitor in a minute. But just to go back to the adoption and to go back to the Cybertruck, what's so interesting as I listened carefully to what you were saying, is you focused a lot on the technical capabilities of the Cybertruck, on what are the actual physical attributes that make it different from other trucks out there today. But let's talk a little bit about the aesthetic, right?
Sure.
Part of the reason the Cybertruck, I think, got so much fanfare is it just looks very different from the traditional vision of a truck versus the cars, at least over time, have morphed into something that looks aesthetically pretty close to what other cars out there look like. So talk to us
Yes.
a little bit about how you think aesthetics might affect adoption of the Cybertruck. And when you talked about the compact car, give us a little bit of a flavor of the rumors out there. Is that going to look like a traditional compact car? Is that going to look like a otherworldly vehicle as well?
Yeah. Such a good question. I think the Cybertruck looks for sure are polarizing. Like I mean it's how could it not be? It's a freaking triangle on wheels. It's like the craziest looking thing out there, right? But I think what the data points that we have that I think point to the looks, I think will be less and less of say a something that will prevent the Cybertruck from being successful is if you just look at the reservations the car has had, the truck has had, it's over 2 million. It's over 2 million reservations for a truck that was initially when they unveiled it in 2019 started at 40,000. Right now, the lowest trim model is 60,000. But from all looks, from everything that all that, if you look at all the different social media posts, if you look at how sort of the hype the vehicle is getting, the amount of attention, reviews from MKBHD, Haggerty, CarWow, Top Gear, Out of Spec just put out a 2 hour long review. There's so much attention on this thing, and attention in the end a percentage of that will turn into sales. That's just the rule. That's what happens. And so I think over time, this is my opinion. I think the specs, the driving dynamics, the capability, sort of the ease of use, the livability of the truck, I think are going to carry it forward, and that's sort of a Tesla hallmark. And of course, I speak as somebody who's very familiar with the company, and I challenge everybody to go out there and try to sort of see if you can find something that's opposite of what I'm saying, and really take all those points together, right? So this is just one part of the story, but I think the Tesla story, why it has been so successful, is because in the end, the product speaks for itself. And if you look at how Tesla has sold their vehicles up to 2023, they've done so with little to no advertising, right? So they've reached almost 2 million units per year with little to no advertising. It's impossible to do that unless you have a product that speaks for itself, which also creates a lot of word of mouth type of advertising. And I think the Cybertruck's going to fall directly in line with that line of thinking. And as far as the compact car goes, I do expect it to be. Initially, I thought it was going to be more Cybertruck-esque, but as the company has talked a little bit more about the car, they sort of hinted that it's going to have a more quote unquote traditional type of manufacturing process, but that process is going to be reinvented into what Tesla calls the on-box process, which instead of it being an assembly line where it's just like one, think of it as a train track going down and then you're just putting the car together. Instead, you're going to have multiple train tracks going down on the same line to try and reduce the time that it takes to build a car. And that's, of course, this compact car is going to be heavily reliant on Tesla being able to pump 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 10 million units per year. And you can't do that unless you have a super efficient, super fast assembly line. But for that to happen, I think they need to use, let's say, more traditional processes, because if they use a lot of new technology, it's going to take them much longer to get to that 2, 3, 4, 5 million per year unit. So I expect it to look a little bit more traditional. It's still going to look different. I think it's going to have some unique things about the look, but I don't think it's going to be as polarizing as Cybertruck.
Let's talk a little bit about other people's products too, Farzad. And you brought up BYD, the Chinese competitor
Yeah.
in the EV space. BYD, just to put some numbers around it, sold more than 3 million vehicles in 2023, about half of which, just over half of which, battery,
Yeah.
and just under half hybrid. There are other players out there. And when you look at where Tesla sits today, do you think that there is another player that can take dominance?
Yeah, I mean, dominance is a fascinating word in the EV space, because you still have to think about what is the pie. What's the pie that these automakers are going after, right? If you think about the total fleet of vehicles on planet Earth, it's 1.4 billion. 99% of those are gas cars, right? And so if you think, okay, the thesis starts with, will transportation become electric over time? And if the answer is yes, which I believe is yes, because we're seeing this exponential growth, we're seeing players like BYD coming after Tesla has laid the groundwork. We see governments going heavy into incentivizing sales of electric vehicles, and there's still growth in that market, even though it's not 80% per year. It's 40% per year. It doesn't seem like it's going to be much slower than that, just based on the data that we're seeing now. And so, if that's the case, then dominance is sort of I think it's not the correct word to use, because it's really, are you going to be able to offer a vehicle that's going to be better than a gas car? And if you're able to do that, then I think people will just flock to it. The challenge companies have is that you have a player like Tesla, you have a player like BYD that are very much in tune with what the customer actually wants. So what that means is it's providing an experience that's better than a gas car at a price where people can be like, yeah, you know what, that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge, right? Whereas, say, companies like GM, companies like BMW, Mercedes, Ford, some of these guys, I think Kia, for example, Kia is doing it the right way. If I'm going to use an example of a legacy automaker that's doing it the right way, what is Kia Hyundai focused on? Cost. They're saying, okay, we're going to try to offer an EV that's as cheap as possible and try to get it into market. And if you look at how they're performing versus their other counterparts, relative to their total business, Kia and Hyundai are doing really, really well. They're not at 100% EV sales, but they're much better than, say, a GM, where GM's strategy, in my opinion, is not the correct one. They're not super, super focused on getting a super, super cheap car out there that's going to perform really well. And what's strange there is they had the Bolt, which was a car that started at $25,000, $26,000, $27,000, had 200 miles of range. They were selling about, I believe, 30,000 of them per quarter or so, but they're discontinuing that model. And the reason why is because they can't make money on it, right? So it's like, and the only companies that can make money on those electric vehicles are companies that are taking a ground up approach on building an EV, right? So, and that's why Tesla's able to make money and sell a bunch of them. That's why BYD is able to have 5% net margin on the business while selling half of their cars as electric vehicles, is because they're thinking about the product differently. And I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole for 10 hours because there's so much there. But I think if a automaker can build a car that people actually want, people will buy it. It's just, I don't think many are doing that yet. It's really two major players right now.
Let's talk about some of the other features that these new thinkers are putting into products, Farzad, and that's really trying to integrate AI capabilities into the functionality of these vehicles.
Yes.
Tesla, that being said, recently had a recall of more than 2 million vehicles over its autopilot technology, and included a software update that alerts drivers of their responsibility on the road after accidents in the event there's been over-reliance on the autopilot system. So when you think about the AI that's being built into Tesla's technology, or BYD or others, are there flaws that are just glaringly obvious to you? And you're just saying, given your background, given your insight, you're sitting there going, look, I really wish there was more AI going into addressing this driving issue, but that we pull it out of other aspects.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad you brought up that example, because I think it really talks about how AI, artificial intelligence, sort of self-driving technology is going to really upend this industry. So if you look at that recall that NHTSA put through for Tesla's autopilot that impacted 2 million cars, I think the word recall itself shows how outdated the current system is as it relates to technology in cars. So when you think recall, what do you think? You think, oh my God, I'm gonna have to bring my car in. Oh, there's something fundamentally wrong, right? But this was really just a software update. And the software, all the software pushed out remotely, and the recall, what it was like, just make the things bigger. Like, make the text bigger and make it a little bit more obvious so that people don't abuse the system. That was really the quote unquote recall. But the reason why I think it just paints a perfect picture is that this is brand new technology that is disruptive by nature. It's tough to understand exactly what the future implications are going to be, but in a world where there is 30,000 deaths per year in the United States from car accidents, where there's 1 million people plus dying globally from car accidents, having a system where it's going to be able to monitor your surroundings 100% of the time. It's never going to get tired. It's never going to be drunk. It's never going to be texting and driving. You're going to be able to literally have a bird's eye view around the car 24/7. And to think that a system like that won't be beneficial to humankind long term, I think is an incorrect view. But the road there is going to be weird. It's going to be really, really weird, because then it's going to be, now humans have to trust the machine. Humans have to trust the machine. And how many movies are out there where this turns into freaking apocalypse? This is like, why are we going down this route? This is crazy. But that's where we're going. That's where we're going. And to think, like, I'll make it the business case, right? If you have an Uber driver, you can hail an Uber, say you're going down to the airport. So for me, it costs about $60-$80 to hail an Uber and go down to the airport. And, I can just be in the backseat on my phone or whatever, doing whatever I want. But the reason why it's $80, it's because I have to pay the driver, right? And the driver has to pay for gas. In a world where you have an electric car that can drive itself, that same ride, it's going to be like $5. It's going to be like $4, right? Because you don't have a driver to pay, you don't have gas to pay. Electric vehicles are significantly more reliable. And so the business case, just capitalism will just force everybody to have self-driving cars, because it's a no-brainer to do that from a cost-benefit analysis, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you think about that equation, over time, what's going to happen is, I think regulations are going to have to get we're going to have regulation that makes sense as it pertains to regulating self-driving vehicles and that technology, ensuring that it has humanity's best interest in mind. I think for a period of time, I think we're going to have to just sort of be, and I hate to say this, we're going to have to be okay with a machine making a mistake 99.9% times less than a human will, which means someone will die from a machine, but we won't have 30,000 deaths per year. We'll have hopefully 0, but maybe we'll have 10, maybe we'll have 20. And that's the sort of thing that we're going to have to navigate through. And I welcome the other side of the discussion and saying, you know what, we shouldn't never trust the machine, because humans should have complete autonomy over their actions. But if that's the case, I'm like, okay, so then why are you letting an airplane fly in autopilot in the air? Right. So like that's, and it opens this sort of can of worms that we have to navigate through, but we'll figure it out. But it's coming. It's going to happen. The business case is too strong. The companies that are ahead of the technology and how they're solving for that will be the winners. I believe that Tesla will be one of those, because of their approach and how they're building the full self-driving stack with vision and AI, and the way that they're thinking about collecting data and deploying it to the fleet. But again, that's another rabbit hole we can go down for like freaking 10 hours. So
without 10 hours available to us. So let's talk a little bit, Farzad, about what's on your shirt. Your shirt, it says the robots are coming. So let's talk about robotics. And let's talk about Tesla releasing a teaser recently for its next generation AI-powered humanoid robot, which is called Optimus Gen 2. In the video, which is fascinating, everyone should go watch the video, the company revealed new upgrades to the hands of the robot. And that maybe gives the robot the ability to do day-to-day tasks. Farzad, it's come a long way, the robot, since its Bumblebee version in 2022, which, by the way, was not a very long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. So it's come a long way pretty quickly. Could you talk a little bit about what kind of AI is running the Optimus bot? How much of it is dependent on generative capabilities versus reactive? And talk to us about how much of the AI that's being applied to the Tesla EVs is coming from or being applied to Optimus.
This is the part that I think is the most exciting. If somebody that follows Tesla closely, this is where it gets wild. So the same exact hardware and software stack that's being used to run the self-driving software for the cars is being used in the humanoid robot. And so the way this works is Tesla essentially has created a system, and I'm going to try to dumb it down because this is a little bit esoteric, but I'll try to dumb it down a little bit. So the way this works is Tesla has cameras on the cars, and those cameras basically, there's 8 of them that look around them, and they just bring in a bunch of video feed of people driving. people driving correctly, people driving incorrectly, right? But it's just feeding a system. And Tesla has built an artificial intelligence brain that basically takes every single video feed that comes from the cars, and then without Tesla telling it anything, they don't say, this is a stop sign, this is a road, this is a line, this is a yellow line, don't go over it, this is a pedestrian, God, don't freaking hit it, right? They don't write any of that code. All they do is just feed the system what correct driving looks like, and then the car just does it. It just learns. It's kind of like a child. When you're teaching a child something, you're sort of practicing with the child, and the child eventually picks it up, and then they keep doing the motion over and over again. They get better. This is literally how the car is learning now. And so that same exact system, that foundation, they're using for the bot. So now the bot, instead of having cameras in a car, you essentially have cameras in a bot, or you have some sort of system that can observe humans doing a task, and then the bot just learns it, and then will be able to pick up a freaking a cup and pour coffee in it. It'd be able to, this is the one I'm most excited for, fold laundry, okay, wash dishes, okay, and it's just through observation. So what would typically happen, so before the age of artificial intelligence, the way something like this would be done is somebody has to sit in front of a keyboard, a coder of sorts. Really, really advanced folks have to sit down and build systems where they have to tell the machine what to do and try to come up with every permutation possible so that the robot doesn't make mistakes, right? And if you look at Boston Dynamics as an example, so Boston Dynamics is a world-class engineering firm, a world-class robotics company. Their stuff is incredible, right? But the fundamental difference there is that somebody has sat down and they've told the robot what to do in that exact situation to try and account for its surroundings. Whereas the Tesla robot just knows how to do it because it has an actual brain. It's kind of like thinking. It's analyzing, right? And that's where this is very exciting for people that sort of are following the story closely, is because now we might have a legitimate use case for a robot that will free up our time at home. It will enable us to be much more efficient with our work. Again, that opens in a Pandora's box of like, okay, if we have robots that do everything for us, what are we supposed to do, right? So it's and this is sort of where we're going. This is sort of where we're going in a similar fashion as you have the full self-driving technology, quote unquote, removing drivers from the road. That's going to impact things like heavy trucking over the long term, taxis, obviously. You're going to have a quote unquote crisis of work in a way when it comes to driving. But then you throw this human or robot into play, you might have a crisis of work, period. And then we're not even talking about on the software side. On the digital side, you have your LLMs and things like ChatGPT and whatever else they're coming up with that are disrupting that area as well. So you're seeing this disruption in the digital world with things like ChatGPT, and then Tesla's going to disrupt the physical world with the Optimus robot, most likely.
So just wrapping the thought there, Farzad, quick question for you on Optimus specifically.
Yeah.
We're seeing how far it's come, we're seeing the videos, but it's not out there for sale yet. Mm-hmm. Why not? When is the decision to go and commercialize this by selling Optimus to the general public? What's your bet on timing?
That's a great question. So I think complete guess. Can't wait to come back and watch this and see how wrong I was. So what I think is going to happen is Tesla will start using this internally first. If I were to guess, so for example, at factories, right?
Okay.
One of the main functions at a factory that I don't think a lot of people realize is just moving stuff from one point to the other, right? It's moving stuff from the dock door to the assembly line. It's moving stuff from one bay to another. And this is traditionally done by human labor. It's done with forklifts, right? It's assisted, but there's a lot of just picking up stuff and putting stuff down. When I worked at Tesla, I was on the supply chain side. We were in distribution. You've been in distribution. How much of it is just move part from point A to point B? I mean, a human or robot would be insanely useful there, right? Picking, packing, putting away, receiving, stuff like that. So even those basic functions for a company like Tesla, they would get a ton of value from having a human or robot doing that. And then over time, I think it's going to be, they'll use it to ensure that the systems are functioning, that it's safe, that it's learning appropriately. And then as far as it being commercially available, this is where it gets weird, right? Because if you think about it from a business perspective, would a human or robot its ability to make a company more efficient and to reduce costs is giant, especially when the material costs for this thing are probably going to be no less than $20,000-$30,000 truly, and the manufacturing process will add something on top of it. So you do the math there over 5 years. What's cheaper, a $40,000-$50,000 human or robot, or paying somebody $50,000 per year, and then health insurance? And I mean, it's easy math, right? So will that happen first? Will I be able to go on their website and buy one and teach it how to, fold my laundry or whatever? And not to mention that if I teach it to do something, then it's going to be able to do that same exact thing for everybody, because you just upload that thing to the brain. I don't freaking know. Okay. I'm actually going to answer your question. I think they're going to start selling these to the public probably in 2026, if I were to guess.
And we're going to stop right there because that is a big, bold prediction. And we are going to keep tracking this. Former Tesla insider Farzad Mesbahi, thank you so much for joining. We have so much to follow up. We'll come back. We've got to talk about the next gen of the bot. We've got to talk about where the recalls or the software updates are going. We've got to talk about these production numbers. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Come back. Lots to unpack going forward.
We'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.